Dinesh, can
Abhishek,
I
I've
say
interviewed
something?
your dad and mom countless times, but with you, my record is very poor. One interview, that also for Sunday meeting. The good thing about that interview was you gave me so many highlights to choose from. I had a tough time choosing one single highlight. And I remember one thing you said, I don't know if you remember. I asked you, don't you think Hindi film mothers are over idealized? And you said, no, my mother is like them also, which I it really stumped me. And in the last 20 years, you built such a body of work. Amazing. Whether it's intense roles, whether it is emotional roles, whether you're doing a Yuva or a Ravan, or whether you're doing comic roles where you make us laugh, like Bol Bachchan and
Bachchan.
the other one was,
Guru.
which one?
Guru.
Dostana.
Please, that's
Dostana.
that.
Guru.
Anyway, but when I was discussing comedy, I don't know if you remember, I was discussing comedy with Akshay and you. And then Akshay asked me, which are your favorite comedies? When I named a few, he said, then you will not like my film. You won't like my film. This is your idea of comedy. And also, I want to tell you that you've taken risk in your career all the time, I feel. You know, to play Guru at your age, pot-bellied, and then an older man. That was an amazing thing to do. Then to play a pretend gay in Dostana, that was another amazing thing to do. So you take chances all the time, and that's very amazing. There's more, but now I think I'll plunge straight into. And I remember one incident very clearly. You were not an actor yet, and we had come. I had come to your house. I used to come every year to play Holi there, and you and Shweta got me, bodily lifted me and dunked me into a tub of water. And I was saying, Mera chashma, mera chashma, mera chashma. So now I'll plan straight into the interview. Tell me, you're playing what do you call that? You're playing Harshad Mehta right now, right? I mean, you played already, correct? So do you trade in shares?
My financial consultant does. I don't personally. I find it too stressful. So I have a financial team that does that. But I made a movie over the last 2 years called The Big Bull.
Right.
And it's inspired by true events. I wouldn't call it a biopic. I mean, I know it's very easy to, but it's inspired by true events. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, I've worked on films which had the backdrop of finance and the financial markets. But, you know, I think a lot of the time as actors, sometimes we get a bit swayed by possibly the backdrop of a film. I believe personally that at the end of the day, what's the emotional journey that your character is going on? Does that interest you? And if that's interesting you, then it can be on any backdrop and it'll be engaging. So when actually my friend Ajay Devgn is the producer of the film, and he called me a couple of years ago and said, look, I've come across the script. I really like it. The director is exciting. I'd really like you to hear it. First and foremost, I mean, it's a yes over there straight away because I can never say no to Ajay. Ajay is a very, very dear, close friend of mine. He's like family to me. He's also my neighbor. But he was also, in a sense, one of my first bosses, because when I left my education in America, I was studying in university in Boston. And I mean, I've said it several times, the family was going through a bit of a financial crisis with my father's company called ABCL. And I just felt morally I needed to be with my father because he was dealing with this entire problem by himself. So I left my studies. I was studying acting in Boston, and I came back, and he put me to work in the office. And I remember I started my job in the front desk at the reception, where my job was after 9:30, everybody that came late had to sign in with me. And that carried on for about 2-3 days. And then the executives of the company were not happy about the fact that the son of the boss was aware of how late they were coming. So I was shunted off into production. So I did all odd jobs in production, making tea, carrying lights, driving actors to and from set. Whatever odd jobs where we could save a little bit of money, I used to do. So one of my initial jobs, one was driving Chandrachur Singh, Arshad Warsi Priya Gill and an actress called Simran to set of a film we were producing called Tere Mere Sapne. So I used to take my mother's car. I just recently, I just got my license, so I used to, we'd save money on a car and a driver. So I used to drive them to set, and with that, I was also made a production boy on a film my father was working on called Major Saab, which was directed by Tinu. And through the making of that film, I started as a production boy and worked my way up to an AD by the end of the film. And that film also starred Ajay Devgn. And although I've known Ajay since I was a child, but he was obviously much senior, so he was the one generation ahead of us. He's also a Juhu boy. So obviously there was familiarity, but I mean, he was still the Ajay Devgn. He was a huge star. And he really took me under his wing, and he, I mean, literally taught me everything that needed to be known about working on a film set and about filmmaking. And so since then, I've been very close to him. And so whenever he calls, I mean, the last time he called me, he said, "I'm producing a film, you have to do it." I said, "Okay." That ended up being Bol Bachchan. And after that, he's called me and he said, "Look, I've got this film, and I'd really like you to hear it." So in my mind, it was already a yes. I was just so excited that it was such a wonderful character to play, which had a lot of growth. It had a great graph to it. So I was very excited, but I'm not one of those, Dinesh, who believes that I've studied the method. I've read Stanislavski in and out. I've done most of Chekhov's plays, done that whole thing in acting school. But I think you have to find your own method. I've always believed that, Stanislavski, poor chap, I think some Russian nobility actually just put a gun to his head and said, "Mujhe acting sikhao." And he was like, "Yeah, but how am I meant to?" He's like, "Write a book on it." Can you imagine? You have to actually write down the process of an actor, which is a totally emotional process, to write it down in words, to quantify it in a sense. It's impossible for me. It's a feeling at the end of the day. But this poor chap was given this task, and he had to write it down. So he's managed to make it very technical. But I think every actor has their own process, and they adapt it in their own way. Some actors don't like to prepare and like to be very spontaneous. Some actors like to prepare immensely. Some people employ the method. I've not been somebody who employs the method. In that sense, I'm very influenced by my mom's style of acting, which is once the camera comes on, you come on. But you do a lot of prep. My mother actually in the family is the only entirely trained actor that we have. My father was an amateur actor. He used to do theater. I used to do theater. I did my GCSEs and A levels and in drama, and then I was studying performing arts in Boston, but I didn't complete that diploma. Aishwarya is not a trained actor, so my mother is a trained actor. So I think I see her process very similar to mine, where there is a lot of mental prep, there is a lot of research, but once you're on set, you just have to kind of throw that up in the air and hope for the best to come down. And
discussing your mom's style of acting, your dad once told me, I asked for the lines one day before, so that when I go on the set, I'm thinking about how to emote it rather than what are the lines.
Right.
It was very interesting.
No, he is one of those, yes. But I think the one co-star I've worked the most with is my father and I think Ash. But with my father, what I've realized is, first of all, just the immense talent, which is, but obvious. But
absolutely,
anything. The brilliance of the man is anything that he's done in a scene. I can tell you, not as a son, not as a fan, but as a co-star, each and everything down to a blink is thought of and is intended.
Wow.
And that's how in depth an actor he is. He made a film which is one of my favorite films of his in the early 90s called Agnipath. Right. And I still remember we used to go.
One of my all-time favorites.
It's a brilliant film, yeah. So there used to be a preview theater, Dinesh, you'll remember, very close to my house called Sumit.
Right.
And that was owned by Mr. Prakash Mehra. And my father used to do a lot of dubbing over there. And I remember when I used to come back from my boarding school in our holidays, every night, my father was shooting 3 films with the same director. It was amazing. He was shooting Agnipath, Khuda Gawah, and Hum all together. and they're all made by very dear friends of my father. So every night, everybody used to be home. From Mr. Mukul Anand, the great director, to Mr. Romesh Sharma, who's one of the producers. And I remember every night after dinner at our home in Pratiksha, we used to drive across, which was literally like 200 meters away, to Sumit, and we used to watch the rushes of all these 3 films because my father would like to review the work. And obviously, an added bonus for us kids, a dear friend of mine, Goldie Bell, and I, we used to tag along because you're getting to see rushes, and we obviously loved the world of one of the added benefits is you'd get to see the making of this amazing song called Jhumma Jhumma.
Yeah.
So